We are live, pal. Of course, I am Double G. I apologize for not being available last week. I was in New York because my company was listed on the New York Stock Exchange. I don't think you can see my shirt very well, but I am back. We are back. I also got to hang out at Club Zarian to see how the sausage was made. We recorded Andrew's first ever episode of Sunday's Wrestling Observer Live. Rich was there as well. So let's bring Andrew in here. Andrew, how was week 2 of Wrestling Observer Live?
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. I had my buddy Harry on. He's a stand-up comic here, also is in the wrestling business. He does commentary here in the Northeast, and I had him on. It was awesome because he's an old-school radio guy. He worked on Opie and Anthony. He worked on Ron and Fez, so he kind of gets traditional radio really well. And then Dave called in. I had Dave surprise me with a call in the second hour, and that of course, Dave calls in, everything stops. The world just stops. The earth stops rotating. Everybody's focused in on Dave. Fantastic. It was great. It was a lot of fun. And next week is going to be very different. I think Brian and I are doing it because it's a pay-per-view night.
Okay, so he's going to do first hour, and you're going to go second hour.
We may do both. We may do 1 hour together. We may do 2 hours together. I may just do second hour. He may just do first. So I got to talk to him. But we're doing all these different formats now with the show, and I think people are kind of digging the change.
Yeah. Well, what happens is when you go to Club Zarian, you come home with gifts. I think everyone can see this. The Wrestling Observer Live glass here. I don't know if you know this, but I snuck 2 of them. I had the one that you gave me, and then you're like, give this to Dave. If I give it to Dave, it won't never see the light of day. It'll be tossed somewhere, and it'll just be absent. So it's like, I'm taking both of them. One for me,
for you.
One for my wife, or maybe 2 for me. We got to introduce our guest. So no Denise this week. Denise, she had some very important things to do. She's not big timing us. She'll be back, but she had some stuff to do. Important stuff for her career. And we are very proud of her career. But our guest this week is someone who Booker Denise set up, which is Will Washington, host of the Grapsity Pod on Fightful and self-professed Mariah Carey stan. What's up, Will? And off the top of the dome, give me your go-to Mimi song to get you in that mood.
Stay the Night, off of the album Emancipation of Mimi from 2005.
It's a great song. Is that Jermaine Dupri produced?
No, Kanye West.
Oh, Kanye. Okay, there we go.
Yeah.
So welcome to the show. Glad that you're here. I've been following you on Twitter for a little while now, so happy to do this with you. But what's going on? How's your day going so far?
Going really good. This is my 4th day in a row of podcasting about pro wrestling. Because yesterday I did My Mom's Basement with my old and dear friend Robbie Fox, and then we had
Robbie's the
recap
best.
of Full Gear. Yeah, Robbie's the best. And it's funny too because I've known Robbie for a really long time. He always likes to give me credit for giving him his first break in podcasting because I got my start on RBR Weekly Wrestling Talk, and so did Robbie. We did a spinoff of RBR 7 years ago called RBR Into the Octagon, and that was the first podcast Robbie ever hosted. And then I remember he let us know, he's like, I think I'm going to start working with Barstool, and it was like, okay, have at it. We don't know what that's going to lead to. And then all of a sudden, Robbie's just that guy now, right?
He's a star now.
And so it was great to get to host with him this week and get to do the Full Gear recap. And then, of course, they did Grapsity itself on Saturday, and we did the Full Gear recap show with Fightful. And so I've just been doing this left and right for the last few days. But I think I have another one tomorrow. So
well, you'll be thankful to hear. We can't avoid Full Gear because it is still the aftermath and everything is still, we still need to talk about it, but we're not going to spend the entire 60 minutes talking about Full Gear. We'll talk about other stuff because there's another pay-per-view coming up this weekend in Survivor Series. But so I guess I should just share this. So Saturday night, my Full Gear experience was I picked up Brian Alvarez from the airport on a Saturday afternoon. We went out to grab some lunch with Dave and Dave's son and his son's girlfriend. And then going back to Dave's, and Brian's like, nope, I got to get some ice cream. He's on vacation. So we went and got some ice cream. And then we went to Dave's house, and there was like, 12 to 15 people at Dave's house, depending on the time, because we actually had a split night. So we watched the first, I would say, 3 hours, no, 2.5 hours of Full Gear, pressed the pause button, and then we all jumped in our cars, went to San Jose Civic Auditorium to watch the New Japan show, Battle in the Valley, which was
Garrett, how
excellent.
far was the drive?
15 minutes.
Okay, not bad.
We're really close. Yeah, we're really close. And then that's a building I'm sure that Dave saw wrestling a lot as a kid. It fits about, I don't know, 2,800 or so, but old school building. If you could see if anybody watched the pay-per-view or the New Japan World show, all I got was comments about how low rent that building looked and how the show didn't look great on camera. And I'm like, yeah, like, because nobody runs that building anymore. It's so old. But so I got to see that show, which was a little over 3 hours. Excellent show. Will Ospreay was at another level. Anytime you get to see Kazuchika Okada live, you just go, you're just there, no question asked. So great show. And then we went back to Dave's house about 11:30 and watched the rest of the last hour and a half of that show. And so we were very tired. I was feeling like hell on Sunday, and I'm like, man, I didn't even drink. I'm not supposed to feel this bad when you don't even drink. It was just because of the lack of sleep, but overall, super fun night. So it leads into my question here about Full Gear. I want to ask both of you, and we'll start with Will, our guest. Lots of discussion about the quality of that show. Some said it's the best pay-per-view they've ever seen. Other folks on the fence were like, it was good, but I wouldn't call it the best. I'm sure there's somebody out there who found issues with it to dislike, but where do you fit on this scale of the quality of Full Gear? For me, All Out, I enjoyed All Out better, but I was also there live, so I didn't get to see the All Out show on pay-per-view. But where did you sit with Full Gear, Will?
See, and I was the same way because I was at All Out as well, and but I was also at Double or Nothing. Full Gear was like the first pay-per-view in a long time that I watched from the comfort of my own home. So I definitely have a different view of it than I had of the other shows. I did feel highly about the show. I think if I can steal a quote from a friend of mine, Josh Swallow, he mentioned how going into the show, he had concerns about the show possibly having what he called good match fatigue, and that you might. He was looking at the card and he was like, I feel like everything here has a chance at delivering, but it could possibly cause without any. Like, good example. Like, look at All Out, right? All Out had the Paul White versus QT Marshall match that kind of served as a little bit of a buffer between everything else on the show, and like that was the second to last match. And it felt like Full Gear didn't have anything of the sort. It was just kind of go, 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 go. And I loved the show. I had a lot of fun with it, and I think I've watched it now like 3 times now because I've talked about it so much, and I keep refreshing my thoughts on it. But I don't feel like it that having that much quality is necessarily a bad thing, and I never complain about that. But it definitely was exhausting,
Yes.
and it's to me, I have it probably at about my second favorite of the year. I think Double or Nothing is still up there for me. As well, just because it was that first show with fans back,
Yeah.
and it was we got to see so many guys who hadn't even had the opportunity to perform in front of a full crowd, and then all of a sudden are. So I liked Double or Nothing for that, but then All Out also had the surprises. So it's probably like in between. I think I'd rank them like All Out, Full Gear, and then Double or Nothing.
Interesting. Andrew, you were also at
Yes.
Full Out. Gosh, we were all at All Out. How come we didn't hook up with Will? What happened there?
I don't know. I have no idea. Well, maybe Will was in the press booth.
Oh, okay.
So a funny good thing was I did see Dave at All Out, and then
How do you not see
I
Dave?
missed.
How do you miss those biceps?
Well, it was funny too because like there were a bunch of people nearby. He was like standing in a whole group of people, and like not a single person had noticed him until I said out loud. I was like, "Oh, hey, Dave!" And then everybody was like, "Wait, Dave Meltzer?" Like everybody turns their head, and like all of a sudden they're like, "Oh my God, Dave Meltzer!" And I was like, "My bad." It's like for a second there, like he actually wasn't recognized, and then all of a sudden he was because everybody had their masks on, right? And so he had his on, and but yeah, I did see Dave at All Out, and then it's funny. Everybody went out the night before for the like karaoke and stuff, and like I missed everybody by like I'm told 2 minutes. I like showed up at the karaoke bar, and they were like, "Yeah, everybody just left." I'm like, "You kidding me?" Okay, so that was that.
So Andrew,
Yeah. Yes, sir.
what were your thoughts on the quality of this show? How did it sit with you? Experience, you've seen all the AW pay-per-views as well.
Yeah. So it's funny because I asked Dave the same question when he called in on Sunday on Wrestling Observer Live on what he thought was a better show. Being there in person for All Out, it was look. It's not a fair comparison, and I'll tell you why. Being in that building, very special night, right? Regardless if you're an AEW fan, WWE fan, the fact that you had Bryan Danielson there, you had the return of CM Punk, it was a really big-time show, and I think it felt that way for the people in the building. So watching it at home, it was still a fantastic show. But my opinion of that show was totally skewed. I also had taken like a handful of edibles right when the show started, so I was losing my mind about everything. I think that whole row behind you, Garrett, I got
Yes.
Everybody just took as much edibles as they had, and we said, let's just see what happens. And the second Jon Moxley walked down next to us, it was like, I can't even explain it. I think everybody turned into like a 10-year-old, the fact that they got to experience this. So it was a really cool experience. But watching it, doing the watch along on Saturday night and watching the show and then rewatching it on Sunday, it was a fantastic show. I think Dave said he had like 8 4-star matches if he were to, on the spot. I think that's what he said. 6 to 8 4-star matches. Listen, 3, 7, 5, 4, 5. It doesn't even matter at that point. I thought everybody worked really hard. I can't even tell you what the worst match was because I think everything was pretty decent. I would say that this felt more of a continuum type show where this is going to build into other things while All Out seemed more like a spectacle, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, they did the surprise thing better than WWE, which WWE will go to that and do it well. And it felt closer to like a big giant show, and this felt closer to like a really great wrestling show. And I think both of them, they were both really good, but depending on what you like about your pro wrestling. And so which will lead me to my next question, because I think this will sort of, give the people watching sort of a taste of what we like individually. I will say my favorite match on the show is probably going to be different than what everyone else said, or what everyone else has chosen as their favorite match, because my 2 favorite matches were Danielson and Miro and CM Punk and Eddie Kingston. And it is because of my taste in what I really like about pro wrestling.
Interesting.
Those were little bit top? More. Those were my 2 favorite matches. Doesn't mean that they were the 2 best matches. Like quality-wise, if I was to rate them, I don't think that they would be the highest rated. I don't really do stars, but my favorite matches, because of the style in which both of those matches were, Danielson and Miro, a little bit more, grappling, other, strong strikes. And then on the other side, Punk and Kingston was just like a fight, right? A 10-minute fight. And so those cater more to like what my tastes are. But you had so much variety on this show. You had the crazy and insane Young Bucks match with Jungle Boy, where they're just doing everything possible in a match that's getting over with this crowd by the end of it. You had the main event, which told this fantastic story with Adam Page and Kenny Omega. And like you said, everything in between too, whether if you liked the craziness of the Jericho match, if you liked the Lucha Brothers match, where it sounds like I guess it would have been Dax got a little dinged up in that match, which explains how the finish happened a little bit more. But so back to you, Andrew, and then we'll get Will. What would you consider your favorite match on that show?
You know, I've been thinking about the answer to that because I anticipated we're going to talk about this. I really loved the CM Punk and Eddie Kingston match because it was short and sweet. I don't think that match should, and it was exactly what it was going to be. It was sloppy in a positive way, not sloppy in a negative way. It was a brawl. They were beating the crap out of each other. I love that. I went into the show not really invested in the Chris Jericho match in the Inner Circle and American Top Team. America's Top Team, American Top Team. American
Top Team.
American Top Team. I was not really invested in that, and I absolutely had so much fun watching it. It really turned me over. But I would have to say it was the Kenny Omega and Hangman Page match that really was, I would say, was my favorite, and it's because the story that they told is a 2-year story. It really, Kenny gave everything to make Hangman look like $1 million, and Hangman looked like $1 million on his own. You know, I just feel that the effort in that match was so over the top to make it work. Where watching it, I watched it twice because I watched it during a watch along and then the next day for notes. Just the things that they were doing, like they bumped on their heads that entire match. And I'm not a fan of it. I mean, really, I was going to come out here and be negative about it a little bit because I fear like that's the next big match thing now. We're going to go back to that. When you have a big world title match, you're no longer bumping on your shoulder blades. You're going to start taking these on your neck and on your head. Those suplexes were, they did everything to make you focus in on that match as a pro wrestling match, and I feel that they told the story from beginning to end, and it executed perfectly. Just for that reason, I would say it worked. It was fantastic, and that was my main pick. Outside of that, I would say the CM Punk match. That was my second favorite.
By the way, Handman Page is the worst superhero of all time. So Will, same question for you. What was your favorite match on that show?
You know, I'm actually going to do exactly what you said because I had a different answer than both of you. And that is Darby and MJF was actually my favorite match on the show. And I thought that those two went out there with almost something to prove. You know, that we had the whole story of them being two of the 4 pillars of AEW. And the story that they went out there and had really like a straight up pro wrestling match, and they had every reason to, right? You know, MJF had the story going into it, and he had made sure that Justin Roberts announced him as the man who's going to beat Darby Allin with a headlock takeover. And then you had Darby, who a lot of people forget, and Excalibur was reminding us on commentary, has the high school freestyle wrestling background. And then those two went out there, and I feel like because they're still lesser knowns to a lot of the mainstream wrestling crowd, had a lot more to prove. And I feel like they went out there and did it. And they went out there first, and I thought they were a tough act to follow. There were so many threads throughout that match, with MJF continuing to try to win with the headlock takeover, and Darby just continuing to try and out-wrestle him. You know, I've now said this twice, but I truly do feel like MJF wrestling as rarely as he does is it does speak well to the strategy of keeping him heel, because I do feel if he went out there and delivered like that all the time, this man would be a babyface in no time. And instead, they keep his wrestling to a rarity, and when he does wrestle on TV, it's usually like a quick squash match. And but this was that reminder that this is a guy who can go, and a lot of people don't give MJF the credit for that. And then Darby went out there and just showed what he does best. And I just thought that this is one of those matches that all I kept telling myself all throughout is give it a year, maybe 2. This could close out any one of these shows.
I thought I'd done a podcast. We previewed Full Gear, myself and a friend of the website, Oliver Kopp. And both of us had sort of said, MJF, he's got everything. And the one thing that we think is just a level underneath the character, the persona, the promos is the wrestling. And in saying that, I thought he had an excellent match on Saturday that to where, not that I had to eat my words or whatever, but to where I was like, yes, like he's getting there because his character is so perfect as a heel and he's so great on the mic. And now the wrestling is going to get up there. But like you said, I think it does help that he doesn't wrestle often. It's kind of a little Roddy Piper-ish in that way, where you save him, and then when he does wrestle, it is very special. So I did like that part about it. But, we're all doing podcasts and even more, and I know Andrew's going to talk about it on Mat Men. I'm probably going to talk about it on Fight Game Podcast. So we'll table the AEW there, because I do want to talk about the WWE show that is coming up. And in the build-up to this show, I will say that not that Survivor Series is ever the best built show of all time, but I do feel like there are two matches on this show that if they decided to really, really put all their eggs in the basket, especially Becky Lynch and Charlotte Flair, because they had this sort of reality situation happen on SmackDown where they were not getting along. I almost feel like they haven't dialed it up enough. Andrew, we've been talking about this for a few weeks now. What do you think about the build to this match? Because I feel like it should be the most anticipated match on the show, and it just feels like it now they've got the situation, and then they did their storyline stuff, their writer stuff in it, and then it kind of pulled it down for me.
So I had a phone call with a good friend over at WWE yesterday, and I called him and I said, "What is this?" I go, "Montreal's a work, Hogan Russo was a work, and now this is a work. You guys are working the public." He's like, "What are you talking about?" I'm like, "Now I get it with a wink and a nod. It made for good TV." So when the incident happened between the two, I called him. I was like, "Hey, tell me what's going on. Give me a statement." And the response was, "Hey, didn't it get everybody talking?" That literally word for word, that's what was said to me. It got, it's a buzz. Everybody's talking about it. And it wasn't like, I thought it would be like, hey, let me get back to you with an answer, right?
Yeah.
But they kind of gave me that. And I'm like, okay, maybe something happened and they made it into a much larger scenario to kind of work the journalist and to, everybody talking about it online. And now all of a sudden it's two people that absolutely despise each other and hate each other in a match. On a pay-per-view, title, two champions, regardless of what it is, sometimes they fall into this very unique opportunity to capture that moment. We saw it with Becky a couple years ago with the bloody nose, and that was Survivor Series, right? So I don't know. Listen, I'm not saying that's what I believe, but I kind of was teasing them a little bit with this, that, okay, you guys leaked the story, whatever. Obviously, people are saying that there was an incident. It's terrible when two friends no longer are friends, but these are two of the top women in the company over the last 5 years or so. They're going to have a fantastic match unless something totally falls apart. That's really the only match that it's in Brooklyn. I'm like 20 minutes away from this building. I'm not going to it this year. And I was planning on going to Survivor Series.
Is there
The
a reason?
Rock was the reason why I'm not going?
Yeah.
The card. I am not.
Yeah.
I'm not.
Okay.
There's nothing really amazing about the card for me to go. Originally the idea was that The Rock was going to be there for his 25th anniversary. This was in the early planning stages. Over the summer, someone that would definitely know about this told me this. They definitely, as you guys know, there's many sources to everything, but I was able to confirm this with multiple people that this was planned for The Rock's 25th anniversary. Whatever happened. Maybe they couldn't make the appearance, but this pay-per-view seems like it's such a non-event for them, and they concentrated all their efforts on the Saudi show, and this one is just a middle-of-the-road pay-per-view to get you to the end of the year. I don't like when they do that. I feel like that was the story with Survivor Series for a couple of years, and then they kind of got back into gear with the champion versus champion concept for this, and it was doing well. I was really enjoying Survivor Series when you would have these mixed matches of like a Shinsuke Nakamura in the ring with Triple H or a Keith Lee in the ring with Roman Reigns. This is what made people want to see these matches happen. Nobody really cares about a 5-on-5 or brand, what do they call it? supremacy. Is that what they were using, the word?
Yeah.
Brand supremacy. You know, I this is the one show that I'm like kind of bummed out about because there were such high hopes for this after the draft. And, you know, throughout the entire summer, when I spoke to people at WWE, everything was, we are so gung-ho for the fall. Come September, things are turning around. We have this going on, that going on. Yeah, you know what they have going on? Roman Reigns. That's the key story right here. And they've done some really cool stuff, but I feel like they kind of dropped the ball with this pay-per-view. I don't know if you feel the same, Garrett.
Well, I was going to ask Will because I mentioned the two matches. I want to see Becky and Charlotte because I think, like you said, it's going to be a good match. I want to see Big E and Roman, but I don't want to see Big E lose. Like, this is my problem with this match. They have something with him, and they need to continue to build him because I don't think the fans have truly taken on to him quite yet. But this is a little bit of a journey for him, and I feel like when we get to the end of this thing, they will fully embrace him as the great wrestler superstar that he is. But I don't want to see him lose to Roman Reigns along the way, and I feel like that's all that's going to happen here. Will, what do you have the same frustration with this card as Andrew, or are you able to find things on at least on paper that you think you'll be able to sink your teeth into?
Oh no, I have a lot of the same problems. So as far as Big E is concerned, yeah, I don't want to see him in this position just yet because I don't necessarily have the confidence that they'd let him be the guy to go over Roman. But at the same time, I don't feel like Big E's in a position where he should be losing. I do agree with what Andrew said and how Survivor Series, because a lot of people are putting the brand supremacy stuff as the reason why the card seems to not feel as special as it has in the past. I don't necessarily think that's so much the case. Because we've seen in the past, they started this concept, 2016? And so we've seen in the past where it can feel special. I've been really vocal about the fact that I feel like a lot of the reason why the card the last couple of years has felt a little underwhelming going into Survivor Series is really the draft being so close to Survivor Series, the concept of Survivor Series being the show where once a year you can get these kind of special matches that you may not get to see every once in a while because it's Raw versus SmackDown, and these are guys that for the most part have been separated all year, except they just got drafted a month ago. So a lot of these guys are actually in spots that we literally could have just seen them in a month ago. And like none of this, like Big E and Roman, all the way up until September, we're literally on the same brand. This is a match that could have taken place at any point. And I do feel like a lot of what's hurt the concept over the years, and really that was the Fox move, right? Because Survivor Series has always been in November, but the draft didn't move to the fall till October of 2019 when SmackDown moved to Fox, and then all of a sudden they had to redraft everybody right before or right around the time of the Fox move. And ever since then, to me, it's felt like that's not enough time to establish people on these brands. It's not enough time to like, why would I care that Seth Rollins cares about the brand supremacy of Raw when he was literally on SmackDown a month ago? And so to me, I do think that that's exactly what's hurt SmackDown, or just hurt Survivor Series as a whole and hurt the entire concept of it.
Andrew, do you have any insight on who these TBAs are for both the men's match and the women's match? Both SmackDown sides have TBAs, to be announced, on their teams. Do you sense that this is an opportunity to create a little bit of a surprise, or they're just going to throw someone in on Friday?
Well, I think the concept was that they were going to kind of keep a mystery. Like we saw the Rey Mysterio situation where Rey's now out, and then Dominic was out before, and they subbed in Lashley. So they kind of wanted to shake things up. I haven't asked who the TB to be announced, to be determined person is. I think it's just adding another element. By the way, with what I said, I expect the show to be very good. I don't expect it to be a bad show. Normally, when they go into when I have the worst expectation of of their product, it's always a fantastic show. I expect this to be a pretty good show. I think people are going to be drawn in to a lot of the key elements happening on the show. I feel like sometimes they announce 4 matches randomly on the internet, and then that was it, and then you didn't really have an idea of what's going on. I'm curious if there's a bigger element that they're not telling us. Because when you see a card like this, it's in New York, by the way. You're in a key market for a key pay-per-view, and you really don't
doing
have
tons
a
of media too.
blockbuster. Tons of media. So, maybe there's a surprise element here that they're waiting on to kind of do on the show. I'm not saying I know anything or I don't know anything. Like I'm not sure what they're going to possibly do, but I'm kind of leaning towards that. I'd be really disappointed if it's just whatever we're getting.
Yeah, if all of a sudden it's a random person who's already on the brand just gets
maybe
thrown
Dwayne
in.
shows up. Maybe
well,
he shows
okay,
up.
so here's my second question. My follow up here is: do we at least get a video of Dwayne acknowledging this anniversary on Survivor Series, because they're doing stuff on the network about him and Survivor Series? They did some photos where Matt Riddle was dressed as like the best Halloween costume of Rocky and Maivia I've ever seen. So do you think that they actually show him a little video? I mean, the guy did a video for Ken Shamrock's Hall of Fame induction on Impact. Like, he could literally get his cell phone and do a 5-minute promo thanking the fans, right?
There's no way he doesn't. We literally just saw him on yesterday was the 20th anniversary of the Xbox, and he literally just appeared, likely from his living room, but he literally just appeared on that to commemorate when he and Bill Gates presented the Xbox 20 years ago, and that couldn't have taken him more than like 10 minutes to record. And I'm sure Survivor Series making an appearance would probably take even less. I can't see why he wouldn't. It would really surprise me if he didn't.
Andrew?
I really would be shocked that we went from, like him appearing to nothing to 0. That would be really shocking to me. I think maybe we'll get like a video package. I'd be disappointed. I'd be bummed out if I'm in the audience and The Rock, it's a video package. He's not there. But here's the other thing, right? This kind of falls in line with the announcement of a second season of Young Rock on NBC. So there's kind of this synergy there with this for promotional reasons. I don't know. I think if they could, they're definitely going to have a video package. I don't know why they wouldn't have one. The key here would have been for him to show up and to do something, to maybe say hello to Roman and give him the look, and you kind of put that mystery in the air for whenever they're going to have that match. I don't know. It's I'm going to say too much if I continue, but I'm actually shocked that this is the card that we're getting. I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, just let us know if you get a text here about what you've said.
Hold on. Let me see. No, I'm okay.
Okay, so I was watching SmackDown, and I'm glad Will is on this, because I saw a clip of Will on his podcast talking about Hit Row. And we don't have to go super into depth about what has happened to Hit Row, but I know, Andrew, when we were talking about this, my worry was that on NXT, and I don't know this to be 100% sure, but my guess was that on NXT, they could be a little bit more in charge of their own creative. It's their idea. It's organic. I don't imagine many of the writers in NXT or in main roster WWE really understand, hip hop, how to put over hip hop, how to present hip hop, the culture and everything in a very organic way. So my fear was, once they made it to the main roster, it was not going to be as good. And so I'm watching this promo, and already Shanky is doing a rap to sort of show you how easy rapping is, and really to just kind of like, I don't know, put a hole in the balloon of Hit Row. I imagine there's going to be a follow-up there. But just to put those guys with Jinder and Shanky already levels them to the mid-card to me. And so my hypothesis seems to have already been made truthful. And I feel like they don't get the act. They don't understand it. They've already screwed with it by getting rid of B-Fab, who I thought was maybe the best element of that act. She's the Lil' Kim. She's the Foxy Brown from The Firm. She's the Raw Digga of the crew. And then they got rid of her, so now it's just the three guys. But, Will, give me your thoughts. I don't know, we had mentioned earlier that there's some things you may not be able to say, so I want to give you free space to say whatever you want to say. But what do you feel about what they've done with Hit Row so far?
First off, I like Foxy Brown with The Firm. There's a reference. But
I had to take it back.
But yeah, as far as what or specifically how they've presented the act so far on TV, I have concerns. I'll say that much. I think that, to me, it's too soon to, that's not to say that I feel like Jinder and Shanky are necessarily even unable to go here eventually. I feel maybe it's too soon to go here with the act, that I feel like they probably need more successes and need to be shown a little more seriously before somebody kind of starts trying to tear them down. And I feel like they only really got to be presented that way 1 week. But I also feel like the act is currently in the hands of people who don't get it. And they're going to continue to not get it and not exactly present it well. Those who know me know that for obvious reasons, I think the world of Swerve. And I also think the world of Swerve's music. And the issues I've had with Hit Row are the lack of, I want to say, almost authenticity in a lot of the presentation. That, like, when you hear some of the work that Swerve does with, like, Swerve City and him and Montezi and the music they get to put out, and then you kind of hear what's done, even with what Top Dollar does in his own music on his own time, and then you hear what's presented on TV, you can definitely see a lack of, but a complete disconnect in the authenticity of the music that's being presented. And I have a big problem with that because it's telling me that it's not necessarily in their hands fully. And if that's the case, I worry about its future on television.
No, it's such a great perspective because, I have been pretty much saying the same thing, because my worry immediately was that the act wasn't going to get over and then they were just going to get rid of it. But it actually did get over on NXT, and I was so happy to see it. And I thought, wow, there's going to be finally something different on WWE TV. And then we get what we got on SmackDown. Now, Andrew, you're a near hip-hop promoter these days.
I am. I am a hip-hop expert at this point.
You are. I mean, you're booking guests, like you're mingling with this hip hop royalty. Like, you're sending me texts of
I had Lil' Kim
photos
at my
of
club
Nas.
last night.
Yeah, I mean, come on.
This is another element in my career for one day when I write the book about how Andrew Zarian became a hip hop promoter at some point in his late 30s. No, listen, I grew up in Queens, right? It's engraved in us. It doesn't matter where you are in the city. Hip hop is an element of your youth growing up in the 90s in the city. Listen, you have an act that's very talented, very, very talented on NXT. Obviously going on mainstream TV, it's gonna go through a lot of hands. NXT, much less hands. Now you take you take these guys that are talented. I mean, they're artists at the end of the day. To be able to put together music like that, or to be able to put the words like that together, it comes from something so natural to be able to do it. So now, tell me how it's possibly going to ever translate properly if you have me write this, a promo, let's say, right? That fills in what they do. And now the writers get a piece of it. Then the producers get a piece of it. Then they finally, by the time it gets to TV, it is so toned down and it's so tone deaf to what the original messaging was. It's done at this point. I mean, The Acclaimed is another great example, right? The Acclaimed, they have a very unique act. They come out there, people love it with Max Caster. And if that was on WWE TV, it would never work. It would never, ever work. I mean, listen, Max Caster got in some trouble, and maybe there should be some oversight, right? But at the end of the day, how much oversight is too much oversight? But listen, with that group, BFAB, you're absolutely right, was a piece that made him unique. It was another piece to that element. And the excuses that I've heard as to why she got released or why they decided to release her are baffling to me. And I can't imagine that that's the actual answer here.
It's their own fault. They put her in a match that she was not ready to wrestle in with another person who was not ready to wrestle in a match on TV. Hey, and so the thing sucks.
But she doesn't need to wrestle. She doesn't
exactly.
need to wrestle.
She doesn't at least
until
not
she gets
yet.
There.
We can build it up to a couple years.
So I asked, and I said, well, listen, like Zelina didn't wrestle when she came in there for a while. I mean, she was there as a wrestler, and they made her into a manager. She didn't wrestle for a while, but why not make her into a managerial role? And the answer to me was that, and I think other people reported this. I possibly Ringside reported. I don't remember exactly who it was, and I apologize if I'm wrong here. But the message to me was that, but we don't have groups, intergender groups on the main roster. That's what was said to me. I'm like, but you really? I'm like, okay, but you have managers. You have that exists in your universe. Why not have her be a manager to them and to kind of piece that group together? It's kind of disappointing to me because I was really high on them to get to be on that roster, and it's a very unique act that would connect to a younger audience, not a 50-plus demo. They would connect to a much younger and maybe a little bit more pop culture savvy audience, because that is something that they are attempting to do with NXT right now. They want it to be more connected to pop culture. I don't know if that's going to translate into it, and I don't know if you want to go into that TV-14 story that we've seen right now. But she was a missing piece to that group, and now you've taken it away, and you've neutered these guys with as far as the group goes, because Swerve is going to have a fantastic career no matter what he does, right? It's a little disappointing to me. Actually, I shouldn't say a little. It's very disappointing to me that we're not going to get that full act on TV.
What's the TV-14 story you're talking about?
So the story came out. WrestleVotes on Twitter tweeted out, and I could I'll piggyback on this, that there were a lot of discussions to make NXT into a TV-14 product, and we've seen that certain elements of that with the language that's used on the TV show. They were cursing. They said they said the S word, guys. We're getting taboo here. There was so that is a piece of element that's in play. I was originally told that they were planning on doing that to add a little level of edge, because to counter the fact that they're all younger guys that people don't really know, to give it a little bit of an edge here. But the ratings have held up, and I know that's going to shock people. They're not. We'll see what they do tonight, but they haven't fallen off the cliff. That 600 to 700,000 range is a really healthy number for essentially a product that nobody knows who anybody is. So I don't know if they're going to go into this immediately, or maybe they're going to hold back a little bit till people get established and give it that little bit of that attitude that people have been asking for.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. All right, we can nip this one in the bud, but I guess the one thing I'll share, and I'll mention this to Will. So when I was and when I was the day after I was at Club Zarian, we did the whole New York Stock Exchange thing, and then we all went out to different areas because it was a volunteer day for us as well. So I was in the Bronx, and immediately Which hip hop artist, historical hip hop artist, do you think will? I asked, where does this person live?
Well, you said does, so we're not talking dead. I mean, what did you ask about Jay-Z?
No, so in the Bronx, they didn't
Wait,
call
no,
it the
we'd be
Bronx.
talking Brooklyn.
Jay-Z's
it's
from
like
Brooklyn.
Yeah, that's
In
right.
RC.
I said so. That they were when they were talking about the Bronx, they weren't just calling it the Bronx; they were calling it the Boogie Down Bronx.
The Boogie Down.
So KRS-One. I said, "Oh, where's KRS-One live?" He's like, he kind of doesn't live around here, a little bit more south. But yeah, so that was cool because that was how I was hanging out there. I was just bugging like the locals. Okay, who's the hip hop artist that you're looking at? And so we were talking a lot about KRS-One and LL and all those guys. So I was having a blast.
Fun times.
All right,
You know what though? Really
for it.
quick.
Go for it.
On the topic of Hit Row, just one last thing I wanted to bring up, which was that there is, I think, a sense of a quality light that could be seen if Hit Row can gain the kind of trust that the New Day has. And when I say that, I mean that there's very clearly less filtering of what the New Day got to do in their promos. And a good example of that was the fact that Big E got to reference the Tip Drill video by Nelly, which aired exclusively on BET Uncut in the year 2002. And there's not a chance in hell that anybody who's a high up at WWE knew that reference, and that got by probably a lot of people. I think there's... What's that?
No, I said I agreed.
Yeah, and I just feel like there's a level of trust with those guys that they're able to kind of to take some liberties with the material they're given and present it in a way that feels authentic. And I feel like now, granted, that probably took a lot of time to gain because we know early New Day was not that. Sure. And I do think that if we could see, and I think BFAB played a big part in that too, but if we could see Hit Row in a lot more of their authentic selves and not so much of what somebody thinks a hip-hop group along these lines would be, I think they'd be better for it. I don't know that they're going to get that, but we've seen it exist and we've seen it create success. And for somebody like me, like hearing about Tip Drill, like popped me. I was seriously like, oh my God, I can't believe that was said on television. And that got by so many people. That's what I want to see more of.
Oh, I'm with you 100%. Okay, so we're going to do a quick, short segment before we get to our performer of the week. And I did let Will know that that's how we end this show. So he's had a little bit of time to think about it. But before we get there, Dynamite on Wednesday will have a match with Tomohiro Ishii and Orange Cassidy as a tag team. Wow, what a dream team there, huh? And so when I was in San Jose at the Civic Auditorium to watch New Japan, the New Japan show, my immediate thought was, Kazuchika Okada is in this building. Why else is he here other than to wrestle in other places? Are you going to really fly him down to the Bay Area just for one show? Like, there's got to be more. There's got to be more. So it made me think a little bit more about this Forbidden Door. And Andrew, we'll start with you. Is Ishii kind of the next... I guess the next layer to this thing? Do you expect something immediately just as big or bigger with with New Japan being in the US right now, some of their guys, or is this it right now? Ishii's going to be kind of the peak of the relationship, and we'll just have to wait and see.
I think that's a great question. I would expect to see Okada eventually. I don't know how long he's in the States. I don't do we know how many weeks or if
I don't know.
Like,
when I asked Dave, he thought maybe that there's a relationship with Impact. He could do something with Impact too, but there none of us really knew. But
I feel bad for him. He'll suffer from PTSD from his past run there.
I know.
I gotta. I think Ishii is a nice next level step for that New Japan connection, because you don't want to just unload now, right? Because we've seen the tease with Tanahashi. We saw the Wrestle Kingdom stuff with Jericho coming out with the title belt at Wrestle Kingdom. That was a big deal to see that title at Wrestle Kingdom, and him and Tanahashi had that match. And I believe he won, right? He beat Tanahashi in that match. So
I think you're right, but I don't remember.
I think I am
Yeah,
right.
Jericho won.
I think I'm right.
Yeah.
Yeah, Jericho. Okay. Okada's a little bit of a different story. That's their John Cena. That's their Roman Reigns, right? That's their top guy. What do you do with him in AEW? It's going to happen, right? Already the door's open. They just got to make it make sense, have it lead to something big. I don't think having Okada show up on TV and having a main event on Dynamite is going to be a big draw randomly. I think if you book it, out, and you kind of have some sort of program happen, you could build the anticipation for it and do something. I think the big story with him is having that match with Kenny again, the tiebreaker to do that. That would be big. I don't know right now. Kenny Omega's kind of banged up. I think Dave mentioned it and a couple other people. His shoulders are done right now. He needs a little time off, which is great. Let him get healthy. But, I really want to see that match. But also, him and Danielson, would love to see that. Another thing that people aren't talking about is that Kenta called out CM Punk.
Mm-hmm.
And he's the North American champion, right? The U.S. champion.
There was also a subtle reference from Adam Page to Kota Ibushi that I think popped a lot of the fans on the Go Home show for Dynamite last week. So there's a ton of stuff that they could do. Will, do you sense any of this is going to happen soon, or much like with a lot of AEW, do you expect this to be really drawn out?
I think fairly soon, actually. I'm looking at the UBS Arena show. To me, feels like a show where that's going to be one of their larger crowds coming up here soon. I think off the top of my head, I don't think there's a larger crowd they have coming up here anytime soon. And to me, that is where I would kind of start to treat this as one of those bigger shows if I were AEW. I'm not saying that's the case, but I am saying that if you have these guys, specifically like Okada, you have him in the States right now, and that show is in 3 weeks, like that's one I'd start building to right now if I were them. I don't know what they've got planned for that show, but it just sounds like that's going to be one of their bigger shows. It is, I think, one of the only ones to cross 10,000 people in the next, I think, of any of their shows coming up till January. So
yeah, UBS Arena right now in Belmont Park, which is 7 minutes from my house.
So you're going?
I'm not going. I can't go on that day.
No SummerSlam. No Survivor Series.
I know.
Jeez.
I know. And I had an opportunity for skyboxes there, and I had to turn it down, sadly, because I have a work thing in the city. But I mean, just for comparison, right? WWE's 2 weeks away from their show over there, November 29th. They've outfitted the building for 7,400 people. Right now, they've sold only 64% of that. They have 4,764 tickets distributed. And then there's 2,698 available. AEW, December 8th, they're outfitting that that stadium for 10,449. They've distributed 8,368. There's 2,000 tickets remaining. It's Long Island. So I think people need to, there's like this weird thing about the Nassau Coliseum where it's one of the worst buildings to be in because the crowd is dead. I don't know why that's the case, and look, I've been at the Coliseum a billion times since I was a kid, and it's absolutely true. The crowd is never hot in that building. Maybe once or twice you get it for a pay-per-view. So I'm curious how it translates to this, but I expect these two shows, even the WWE show, to be a hot show because first time in that building, and this is a major state arena in New York again. We have another building, so AEW's really doing well with their ticket sales compared to WWE for Raw. It kind of says something here, especially for the New York market, because generally, New York, Chicago, Philly, and Boston are a little ahead of the curve normally when you see for events, anything outside of wrestling too, live events, sporting, everything. It's kind of they're about a year ahead when it comes to stuff like this. So I think this is kind of telling. If they do 10,000 people in this building, it's going to be a packed building. And I agree with you, Will. Maybe you use it then. Maybe that's the moment that you bring out an Okada and have this blockbuster moment on television.
That would be tremendous. I think it would be. And like Andrew had brought up, I actually posed this question to Dave too. I said, if Tony Khan wanted to book Omega and Okada, what would Gedo think about that? Like, this is Gedo's story, and would he be okay with it? And Dave said something to the effect of, they'd definitely have to work it out. They'd have to kind of get together on the booking about who's going to win or lose. But it's not impossible to do, because my worry was like, Gedo would just be like, nope, this is mine. You guys can't have this one. And I'm not finished telling this story yet. But it sounds like they could feasibly work together on it, and that would be amazing. I mean, Omega Okada in the United States.
Here's a piece of the element that you got to think about also. New Japan doesn't have a North American partner anymore. Ring of Honor is essentially finished as far as what we know of Ring of Honor. I don't think. I mean, they have Impact, but that's not really going to do much for them as far as eyeballs go for their product, because they probably have a larger viewership as far as the total, global audience than Impact does.
Yeah.
AEW would be the one with national television with, close to 1 million people watching a week, for Dynamite. When you look at that and you compare it, you say, you know what? Having Okada on TV, yeah, maybe we'll work this out, and maybe my guys won't be over as much on this program, but we're still in front of 1 million people, and I don't think New Japan has ever gotten that. In the modern era,
US, yeah,
especially,
yeah,
in the US, yeah.
No, great, it's a great point. All right, we're gonna get to the end here, and I'm gonna let our guest go first here. Our performer of the week, which we consider our week starting on Tuesday and ending on Monday. So, starting with last week, from Tuesday to Monday, Will, who is your performer of the week?
My performer of the week is somebody who worked Dynamite, he worked Rampage, and he worked pay-per-view. It's JB. It's Jungle Boy. Jack Perry. He worked Anthony Bowens on Wednesday's Dynamite, and then turned around 2 days later, worked Bobby Fish on Rampage, and then a day later worked that Falls Count Anywhere match at Full Gear. Like, this was a guy who didn't slow down. It's not like any of these matches were quick throwaways. These were full-on matches that really showcased what Jungle Boy has, and I feel like this was, I've made the joke plenty this week, but this is the week he became Jungle Man. Like, he all of a sudden he's coming out with the beard and the jeans, and this was not the same guy that we saw 2 years ago, and I feel like this was the week that we really saw the maturity out of Jungle Boy. He is my performer of the week.
They definitely told a story with him, right? Of, he had to kind of up the intensity. He couldn't be the nice guy anymore if he wanted to be the guy. And so we got to see a lot of that this week.
Yeah, and because that was the story out of Full Gear, was, of course, when he finally gets to hit the concerto, and he says, "I'm ready," and that was like his coming of age story. And that was one of the things I actually really did enjoy coming out of Full Gear. So, performer of the week, easily Jungle Boy for me.
I made a joke during Full Gear. I said that Jungle Boy's dad, of course, the legendary Luke Perry, worked too hard and was far too handsome for Jungle Boy to have to get thumbtacks in his mouth. Like, Jungle Boy grew up too rich to have to eat thumbtacks, man. I didn't like that one.
You know what? Good for him.
He did it. He's a gamer. All right, Andrew, what about you?
I want to say Jungle Boy did a fantastic job, and I had this visual in my head of if this was an alternate universe and he was in WWE and they discovered that Anna Jay and him were together, she would be Jungle Girl, and they would have like a Molly Holly and Crash Holly type gimmick where they just swing on the rope into the ring. I see it already. I'm suffering now. My brain just stopped. No, my performer of the week is Yonkers' own Eddie Kingston. This dude the last 2 weeks, the work that he did in a brawl, in a 10-minute match, and CM Punk too, right? You got to give all the credit there. But Eddie Kingston made this match into something that was so bonkers. Between him just screaming like Tracy Morgan, cutting a promo on CM Punk, and the middle finger and CM Punk bleeding, I thought it was a fantastic match, and I think they ended it in the right way, where it's still not over. They're gonna, he didn't want to shake his hand, and he said F this, and he walked out. I thought he performed. He's been on a roll. The last couple of months he's been on a roll, but especially since that promo with Punk in the ring, this guy's at the peak of his career right now.
And obviously he would want Jon Moxley to be there with him, but with Jon having to step away, it does give Eddie a chance to be that one wild and crazy guy, right? And he's going to be able to level up while waiting for Jon to come back. I think this is an amazing opportunity for him. I did ask him, Andrew, on the air about the Tracy Morgan voice, and he said he thinks it's just he's like, all of us New Yorkers talk like that. I go, no, but you sound a lot like Tracy Morgan.
Oh, he does.
Yeah.
All I could hear is Tracy Morgan going doo-doo pampas in my head over and over again, and he sounds exactly like him. That's all I see. Listen, he's fantastic, and I'm not knocking Yonkers. My family's from the Yonkers, and that is exactly what you get in Yonkers. He is the epitome of that.
Awesome. All right, I'm going to mention, people are expecting us to say Adam Page because this is Adam Page's week. They're going to have a celebration on Dynamite. They told this long story. He got the big win. I'm not going to say Adam Page because I thought of somebody else, but I thought maybe one of you guys were going to say Adam Page. No shots at Adam Page. He was great. Mine is similar to Andrew's. I just thought Punk was awesome in this match. And, it goes back to that promo that they did, what was it, a week ago Friday, that I actually watched at Club Zarian. And, Punk had to take a little bit of a different way with that promo. He couldn't be Happy Punk, which is what he's been of late. He went, they both went into a reality place of them knowing each other. And I thought it was awesome. And I thought that match was awesome. Like I said, it was one of my two favorite matches of the night. That is not to say that any of those other matches weren't also great. It's just I thought, man, what a sprint, what a brawl. I want to see it again. I don't imagine we're going to see it anytime soon. They'll probably make us wait. But, man, when they do it again, I just can't wait. It just left me wanting more, which wasn't really the theme of that show. Like Will had talked about earlier, like the quality of wrestling was almost to the point of exhaustion. And there weren't very many matches where you're like, let's run it again. It was like, okay, we got everything. We got the whole thing that we need to get, except for that match. And I was like, man, let's run it back. I want to see it again. I want to see them continue to tell that story. So anyways, that's mine. But Will, before we get out of here, why don't you tell us where everybody can find you?
Well, I can be found on Twitter. I am at WilliamRBR. I also host Grapsody for Fightful. That airs every Saturday at noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. That's at youtube.com/Fightful. And we're now 8 weeks into that show. I've been podcasting for 16 years. If you ever want to find my entire archive of podcasts I've been doing that entire time, rbrwrestling.com. You can find every show I've ever hosted going back to June 18th, 2005, all the way till I left that show a month and a half ago. But again, Grapsody, you can also follow Grapsody Pod. That's GRAPSODYPOD. That is a show I host with Phil Lindsay and Righteous Reg.
Andrew, what do we got upcoming on Matman and Wrestling Observer Live?
Matman Live every Thursday, 10 p.m. East, 10 a.m. East, I should say. Not 10 p.m. East. Jeez, I'm out cold at 10 p.m. East on Thursday. My long day. Rich and I have been doing it for 10 years now. We're live every Thursday, so you can check it out on our channel, youtube.com/Matman Podcast, and of course, Wrestling Observer Live. I host it every Sunday. Brian's going to be in this week, so I'm not sure if I'm doing it with Brian or Brian's doing solo this week, but I'll find out. But most weeks, non-pay-per-view weeks, I'm there. 2 hours some weeks 1 hour. Big shows, obviously, we'll be doing a 2-hour show and having special guests on it. But between We're Live Pal, Matman, and We're Live and Wrestling Observer Live, I'm doing 2, 4, 5 hours a week of wrestling coverage, which I absolutely love. I love talking about this.
Busy guy. You'll be able to find me on Wednesday night, Thursday morning on the Fight Game podcast here on f4w.com/Wrestling Observer. And of course, I will be back this weekend with Dave for Wrestling Observer Radio. Now, we're not 100% sure, but we may, and I said may, be talking to Brian Blair, who's got a new book out. If not this week, it will be sometime in the very near future. Dave made sure that I went home with the Brian Blair book, so it's coming. We're going to be doing that sometime soon. Okay, so we're done here. Thank you to Will for hanging out with us. Thank you to Denise for booking Will, by the way. Denise has got the Rolodex, man. No one has a Rolodex anymore, but you get it. And thanks to Andrew, as always. The studio, everything's looking great. I got to see it in person. I loved it. I am Double G.
Much
We will
smaller.
see. Yeah, it is. It's much smaller than it looks. We'll see when we see you. Peace out.